Welcome back, everyone. We're going to cover a few topics, a few frustrating topics, ones that a couple of them I think I'm probably going to be writing about. Haven't had any time to do writing, which is my favorite activity. I'd probably say, you know, writing the articles is better for me than the YouTubing, just because that's like the best way for me to get my thoughts out. You can go back, edit, add images, stuff like that. Video editing is a lot more frustrating for me, and there's the FarCon Feminism episode 5 is going to come out soon. But, because of some other stuff I've been doing that's not YouTube or creation related, I just have not been able to get back to it. It's all started. I have probably 4 or 5 projects that are started now. There's one project that I've been waiting on for several months regarding Venezuela that I need to write an email about, and I haven't had a chance to. So, keep tuning in, guys. I see Larry Gerke's in the chat. Thanks for joining. Please share the stream, everybody. Share the stream. I know there was the poll a couple days ago about the alt tech. Maybe we'll revisit that, or I'll just pull it up when I can find it. So there's a number of topics that are current events related, obviously, that we're going to be covering today. The most important of which would probably be, one second, what's going on with Iran. Um, I've been processing a lot of opinions from here and there, coming from people of diverse backgrounds, and they're all saying, well, even if we believe Benjamin Netanyahu, how many times can you say the same thing? And it's like, enough already. Just either shit or get off the pot. I used to have a friend who used to say that at work all the time. If somebody was taking a long time to make a decision, couldn't make a decision, they would say, well, either shit or get off the pot. And that's what I see is the problem with Iran. The other issue that I'm having is all this smear stuff about Russia. I saw a number of people were posting, especially on Twitter, certain. I think he's really more active on Twitter. I'm not sure where else he's active, but he's very well known. His name is Miami Gator, who is he is a far left progressive, but he made like a very interesting. He shared a very interesting article showing that, just like with Dennis Kucinich, who I covered earlier today, who has been smeared as a Russian tool or as a Syrian tool now, they're trying to do the same exact thing with regards to, just seeing if the window is closed. Same thing regarding Tim Canova, and it's just disgraceful. So we'll go through that article. There's a number of things about Starbucks and the Women's March. More bullshit about nothing. The fact that anybody still gives a fuck about Starbucks shows how shallow the country has become. There's I mean, I might as well cover it now, even though it didn't make my top list of topics. But apparently, the country of Brazil might be going into default, and I believe according to this article from Bloomberg, which is it is a business magazine, they are attempting to make the case that they're sharing the information that Brazil may be going bankrupt or going into default, I should say. Here it is. People don't care about Latin America here because they're more focused about which gender they're going to be that day of the week. There used to be that joke. There were girls with the underwear that said what day of the week it was, and then the girls that were like really a problem were the ones that the underwear said what month it was. So, that's the way it is with genders now. But the fact of the matter is, Brazil, one of the BRICS nations, one of the most industrialized nations in the world, is facing a default. And I mean, their economy's been in recession for, I believe, the last 3 years. since Dilma had that disastrous decision to host both the Olympics and the World Cup. Everything's been going south. It just took, I think, until 3 years ago for it really to stew and get heavy. So this is because they're loaning money to Venezuela, and those and the loan guarantees. I think that Venezuela is late on their interest payment. So it says Brazil's government needs swift congressional action to avoid defaulting on loan guarantees it has made to Venezuela and Mozambique. Legislators must approve the use of up to 1.5 billion reais of $424 million to honor loans that banks made as part of a policy to finance exports. Brasilia itself is on the hook because Caracas is the capital of Venezuela. For those of you that don't know, Caracas is poised to miss a May 18th deadline for a $275 million debt installment. Worried that legislators may not return to work after Tuesday's Labor Day holiday, President Michel Temer canceled a trip to Asia this week to supervise the episode his office said could cause immense damage to Brazil's economy. The imbroglio is a result of a series of missteps by Brazilian policymakers, from a cumbersome arrangement for export loan guarantees to a gross underestimation of the credit risk. Only days before Venezuela missed a previous loan repayment to Brazil last August, top budget ministry officials in Brasilia flatly dismissed the chance that their Caribbean neighbor could default, thereby failing to account for the risk in this year's budget. So remember, I mean, they have to make the books for this year, and last year they were expecting that money to come in, and it might not. It probably won't, in fact. Now Brazil faces an unlikely but possible default, which in turn would have a series of domino effects, including problems with multilateral institutions such as the Paris Club. We expect Brazil to service the guaranteed debt owed by Venezuela and Mozambique. However, in an unlikely event where Brazil were unable to service guaranteed debt, this would constitute a sovereign default. In this remote possibility, we would consider the impact of this credit event on Brazil's sovereign risk, said Samar Maziad, a senior analyst at Moody's Investors Service responsible for Brazil's sovereign debt. The loans guaranteed by the government were made by the State Development Bank BNDES and Credit Suisse, according to the Finance Ministry. The credits were granted during the left-wing administration of Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva and Dilma Rousseff, and used to finance major construction works executed by Brazilian companies in Venezuela. So here you see, this is everybody's talking about, oh, we need an infrastructure plan, we need more money spent, we need more jobs from infrastructure. This is usually what you get. You get a massive, basically a massive earmark, and then it gets chopped up among various contractors, and then they, people bribe each other, and that's what happened in Brazil. That's basically what happened in Venezuela too. That's what's turned South America into a nightmare, and people don't talk about it here. People never ever in the United States focus on what's happening in South America or the rest of Latin America. It's almost as if it's the forgotten continent, even though it's right next to us. And I just wanted to lead off with that because we are going to come back to a lot more domestic policy. So we have Larry Gerke here. This is my stupid opinion. Carlos 77X, didn't BB say that Iraq was about to finish their WMDs? Anyone has lost their critical thinking? Well, that's really, I mean, that's a problem I've seen with a lot of people who call themselves, they are Fox News conservatives, and they think that just because Charles Krauthammer says something, they are basically obligated to believe whatever he says, or not just him, or Hannity, or Netanyahu himself. And I watched Netanyahu's presentation, and I do agree with a number of the premises that he's talking about. The first thing he tried to prove, and he was trying to prove it for an audience of open-minded people, is that Iran has never in good faith negotiated under the deal. But, for example, they always denied that they were seeking nuclear weapons, but they always were seeking nuclear weapons. The second issue is that, but there's, I mean, you can it's much easier to prove that Iran has never, in good faith, negotiated the deal, and that Iran never complied with the deal by the fact that in 2016, early 2016, I showed an NPR article, I think 2 days ago. They were testing ICBM missiles, nuclear warhead capable missiles at the time. This was after the agreement. I mean, why would you be building missiles and producing them? It's illogical to produce missiles that have ballistic warhead capability, nuclear warhead capabilities, if you're not developing nuclear warheads. So that there is logic to what Netanyahu is saying. However, the issue is exactly what Carlos was saying, that he was saying that him and other people were saying the same thing about Iraq. And in the 80s, Iraq was developing nuclear weapons, and the Israelis did bomb a nuclear reactor. After that, I don't know if there was any evidence that they tried developing nuclear weapons again. I know that they were developing chemical and biological weapons for a while. But it's irrelevant now because we've learned from the Iraq War. And I'm sorry if people feel that I'm being, I'm being too much of a pacifist here, because I'm not a pacifist, and I'm the furthest that can be from being a pacifist. I'm saying that we don't get into conflicts that we don't know how to get out of, and we invaded Iraq due to the WMDs, and yet we never found the actual caches, and it's yet to we'll never know if they were ever there. And if you can't prove that they were ever there, it means that the effort was wasted, and you killed I don't know, some of the estimates were in the millions, but let's say at the very least hundreds of thousands of people, and ruined the country and turned it into basically a bloodbath several times over, into our era with the ISIS war, because of the suspicion of having nuclear weapons. And I think it's immature and it's ridiculous to continue to expect people, whatever the political affiliation they are. I'm not a liberal. I wouldn't call myself a Republican either. But I'm not going to buy into this hysteria. Just like what was it, 3 or 4 weeks ago, I was opposed to the Syria strike. I think a number of you were opposed to the Syria strike. So let's stop with the name calling and just really look at the facts, and look at the courts of action too. I mean, even based on the facts that Netanyahu, presented. I mean, let's say that he did steal this massive archive of files and data from the Iranians, which it could happen. Things like this have happened, and it will be the real question will be if anybody will be able to examine those documents. If they're not, then really there's no point in him having presented anything. But the fact was that even with all the evidence accepted into the record, and with Mike Pompeo going there and saying, "Oh, I believe what he said," the question is, what do you do now? And the only thing that I can understand now is, yes, maybe you invalidate the agreement and you cancel it and you say, no, we're not going to abide by this agreement with Iran. We're going to reimpose sanctions. But if after that you continue to have conflagrations with them, and issues with them, and problems with their airspace, and skirmishes with them, then what do you do? Then what do you do? Is the intention here to create some sort of internal revolution in Iran? Because if you don't know that you can do that, then there really is no point. Then it really is some sort of quagmire that we're going to get into. And I think we're all, those of us that remember going into the Iraq War, in terms of the national mood, we're mature enough now to know that you don't believe stuff on first examination. You at least give a reasonable period for the public to see both sides of the story, to be skeptical of what they're hearing, to see more independent verification of what's going on, to see more public release of evidence. That's why WikiLeaks is, whether you like WikiLeaks or not, they're a valuable service, because in many cases they allow the public to examine the same documents that leaders once thought were beyond the reach of the average viewer. So that's it about Iran. And you know, if anybody disagrees with me, if anybody says, "Oh, we should bomb Iran," I'd like to hear. You know, are you ready to possibly engage in some sort of you know, this would probably be a 30-year war of untold destruction. And people who think that Iran is not capable of hurting, you know, its surroundings and you know, causing massive destruction on an international scale, they're just, they don't understand how sophisticated of a military they have, how sophisticated of an alliance they have with Hezbollah. It's just that they're not respecting their enemy. Okay, Larry Gerke is jumping out of his seat. He says, "Fuck me, no, I'm going to decline that invitation. I throw the bullshit flag instinctively on anything the government says. Bolton, jump in Jesus, get serious." Well, John Bolton was a I don't understand. You don't need John Bolton to present the face of neoconservatism if that's what Trump's trying to do. He could have, he could have. I mean, it really, the idea of having Bolton in the cabinet at all is stupid. You know, it's we should have moved beyond that in 2005. You know, he should have been, people should have been like, forget it. He's not working here anymore. You know, you can work somewhere else, but you're not coming back. J-Man Truth Seeker is talking about Bitcoin. Palestine would be my target if I had had to pick. I don't know what you're talking about. Um, that's J-Man Truth Seeker is in the chat. He's talking about Bitcoin and Palestine. Good luck figuring out what he's talking about. Anyway, next thing you know, we're talking about Tim Canova. Earlier today, I covered a story which really pissed me off because I'm from the state of Ohio. You know, OHIO, go Buckeyes. And we have a gubernatorial primary coming up on Tuesday, where the Democratic candidate is Dennis Kucinich, or well, he's one of the candidates. Another candidate by the name of Richard Cordray, who's a much more establishment Democrat. And Cordray and the media, the local, the Columbus media and the Cleveland media, they're all smearing him. Hey, Alicia, welcome back. I didn't get to see your last video, but I'll try to go back and look. So the thing is that they're trying to use, they're not going to attack Dennis Kucinich because of his policies on Social Security or his policies on the economy or his policies as far as Medicare for all, which I would oppose because they don't have the balls to oppose them. What they will do is they'll make up bullshit about him, or they'll exaggerate his ties to Russia because, to be honest with you, he is one of those skeptics. He said, I'm not going to trust what the media sources are telling me or what intelligence sources are saying to the media. I'm going to travel to Syria. I'm going to meet with Bashar Assad. And, you know, he might be the bigger person there. I wouldn't have met with Bashar Assad. I hate the guy's guts. But he did do his he did his due diligence. He went and met over there. Now, I saw Jamal Thomas's stream earlier this week where he said, oh, he met the Syrian opposition. Well, the unfortunate truth is that Jamal was played for a bit of a fool. He met Bashar Assad and then he met the controlled opposition in Syria, you know, because there are some quote unquote legal opposition parties there that don't actually have any influence. So he was meeting basically puppets. But the truth is, even if you question some of Dennis Kucinich's choices as far as Syria, you have to accept that there is not a compelling case. There's not a compelling case that Bashar Assad has carried out chemical weapons attacks against his people. And still, you know, I'm sorry to bring this up again, even if he was to do it, you cannot justify in this day and age in the United States of America getting into another Middle Eastern war using our troops and our weaponry without having a strategy going forward of what to do in the region. He says, over fighting, this is J-Man Truth Seeker, over fighting Iran, I would just take a fight with Palestine first, but never. I, I mean, I guess, but I have no clue what that has to do with anything. Good, good for you. But in any case, well, look, my goal when I try to dissect a story is not always to look at it from the point of view of a Fox News conservative or, by contrast, an MSNBC liberal. It's to look for the best course of action and the one that reflects the truth of the actual circumstances that we're talking about. And when I see this being done to Dennis Kucinich, even though I don't like him, even though I'd never vote for him, I would say, that they have to, chill out already. This guy, I said earlier that the same donor that they're accusing. By the way, I didn't mention this. Okay, I'll get to Tim Canova too. So I'm sorry, I did notify a few people that I was going to talk about Tim Canova more specifically, but I forgot earlier that not only was this person who was accused of being a Syrian agent. Well, not only did he contribute to other Democratic candidates like Alan Grayson, who's a congressman from Florida, who's a mainstream Democrat, but he also, I mean, he also donated to Tulsi Gabbard. Okay, so that's to be expected, and fine. It might be, it might not be a good thing, but who else did he do it for? On November 24th, and I will show this on screen, November 24th, 2015, this is before Dennis Kucinich and all this bullshit, he donated to, who is this? Can you see this on screen? Kamala Harris for Senate. Kamala Harris for Senate. 250 bucks. You believe that? So then you have all this MoveOn.org, Ro Khanna for Congress. Let's see if we can go back to the previous one. I think he donated. Alan Grayson. Nothing in the previous election cycle. I don't know who Winograd is. Now you go to this year, and it's all more for Tulsi Gabbard and Ro Khanna. So I would like to know, when are these corporate Democrats going to start calling for Tulsi Gabbard and Ro Khanna to step down? Well, they're not. Well, ideally they wouldn't, but it could happen, and those people are on the, a little more to the left of the Democratic Party. Um, and I think it's unfair to smear these people when you do have Kamala Harris, who doesn't care about this whole issue, and I believe she would probably let the United States go to war in Syria. She also accepted 250 bucks from the same guy. I did see, for those of you that don't know, I saw an interview between Kucinich and Jimmy Dore, and Kucinich actually accused Ted Strickland, who was our former governor here, of accepting money from Kamal Obeid. But I haven't seen any evidence of that yet. But if there was to be evidence of that presented, it would be a huge issue, in my opinion, because Strickland is one of the attack dogs the Democrats are using against Kucinich. And I'll tell you this, and I've said it before. I've actually dedicated a podcast to this. If Dennis Kucinich is not nominated next Tuesday, the Democratic Party may be completely dead in the state of Ohio. It may be so dead that you could probably use it as fertilizer in Sticks Hexenhammer's garden or something. It's just, there's no saving it. So we're going to go to Canova. I know that I teased it a little too much. Tim Canova, who I remember watching him debate Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Here we go. So Tim Canova, for a progressive, I would say he was the one who most impressed me in 2016. Despite the fact that, I'm a free market guy, he's for all the other crap, regulations, and he's against. I would say that I am pro-conservation. That might be the only place where we share common ground. But here we go. This is a smear job. It says it's from McClatchy, which is a federal. It's a national like news wire service. They're kind of outdated by now, but they said Russian trolls post-election task disrupt Florida and other U.S. energy pipelines. A television crew from Russia's largest state-backed network swooped into downtown Miami 2 days before New Year's Eve 2016 on a curious mission. RT, the network formerly known as Russia Today, was there to provide global news coverage of one of 5 unremarkable rallies. Unremarkable rallies, who's the judge of that? Across Florida that day, aimed at turning the public against the nearly completed $3 billion Sable Trail pipeline designed to carry natural gas to the state from Alabama. What the demonstrators didn't know was that so-called Russian internet trolls have been busy for 2 weeks encouraging people to turn out for the protests with posts on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. They used phony American-sounding identities, names such as Stephen Cook and Emily Baldwin. Russia's hidden hand in the Florida pipeline protest was extensive, according to sources familiar with the operations. At least 8 Russian accounts, most tied to the troll farm known as the Internet Research Agency, sent at least 16 social media messages excoriating the Sable Trail pipeline or retweeting messages from one of its most prominent opponents, a frequent guest on RT. The tweets were sent to a total of more than 40,000 followers, as well as anyone else who saw them via hashtags. The social media propaganda was part of a broad Kremlin campaign to disrupt the booming American energy industry, which seemingly overnight has emerged as a threat to Russia's global dominance, U.S. authorities say. Most of the Russian social media accounts came from the same St. Petersburg troll farm used in a separate, sophisticated operation. I don't know how you can call it sophisticated. I think most of you have seen those stupid ads. To meddle in the 2016 U.S. election, the House Committee on Science, Space, and Technology said in a report last month. Sable Trail got only passing mention in the committee's report, but based on an analysis of data provided by Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, the committee found that the Russian trolls had posted, tweeted, or retweeted at least 9,097 times about U.S. energy projects or environmental issues between 2015 and 2017, about half as much as their election-related activity during that span. Other accounts originating in Russia also weighed in on pipelines, climate change, and similar subjects. On December 2016 Instagram message from an account since taken down showed a photo of a flyer blaring "Stop the Sable Trail Pipeline." It declared the date of the protest a statewide day of resistance. The post drew a response written in Russian from another account. Translated read "a perfect shot." So, the first thing I want to say is, based on in the current mood, unless I see pictures of these actual messages, I don't even believe it happened, and I don't care if it happened. That's the second thing. I don't care. And then it says Twitter has deleted the retweet by a Russian troll using the pseudonym Brianna Ragland of this anti-Sable Trail message. It says thousands demand Florida stop controversial Sable Trail pipeline. And then, no DAPL resistance from December 10th, 2016. The trolls especially focused on the involvement of the host of the Miami protest, Tim Canova, an outspoken activist who is making a second run for Congress in Broward County and who has appeared on the Russian television networks at least 18 times, including during the December 29th, 2016 Miami protest. Canova, in a phone interview, said the protesters never welcomed or tried to get foreign powers to spread the word for us, and stressed that most of his appearances on RT and Sputnik, another state-backed Russian network, came on shows hosted by real journalists. So they put, quote, real journalists, such as former CNN talk show host Larry King. Now, I want to say something. I watch RT sometimes, just, random clips. I wouldn't say that I agree with some of the hosts. In fact, Chris Hedges had a segment that I watched with Richard Wolff that I think was like basically retarded. But for example, Crosstalk with Peter Lavelle. There's another show on it with there's other shows. They have like decent shows. They have what's that guy? Lee Camp is I guess he's not bad. Sometimes he's pretty funny. In fact, you gotta give credit where credit's due. But the idea that they would put that Larry King is a real journalist in quotation marks is just an insult to the reader's intelligence. When I was growing up, Larry King was the interviewer of all interviewers. It was always him. It was never. I mean, you didn't. if you wanted to be reached by to reach millions and millions of people, you wouldn't go on. I mean, you would go on Barbara Walters' show, but you'd reach an audience of dumber people. Um, yeah, usually, I mean, Larry King, he was the shit. He was the shit back then, and he still looked super old even back then. I mean, that was 20 years ago. I mean, now he must be like fucking a billion years old. But the fact that they would put it in, in quotes, real journalists, is an insult to the reader's intelligence. It says, should I reject interviews on RT or on Fox News because some people don't like the messenger? So, they left out the fact that the only other network that will dare to host him is Fox News Channel, which, I have criticism for Fox News. I actually criticized them earlier in this broadcast, in this live stream. But this is ridiculous. I mean, people should be able to talk on whatever network that they want to. Even, I mean, I hate Democracy Now! With Amy Goodman. But if somebody wants to go appear on it, go ahead. I attack people sometimes for dishonesty. The Real News Network, I'll attack for the dishonesty because they don't show that they have actual reporters that are affiliated. They're literally affiliated with the Venezuelan government. It's not even like tangential, and they won't show it in the what's it called, in the stream. What do they call it at the bottom? The ticker. They won't show it in the ticker. They won't say this woman is married to this guy or whatever. Now, to be fair, there are reporters who work for like ABC and CNN that have the same issue with the U.S. government. So it's not just the Real News that has an issue with that. It's not just Telesur, which is basically Venezuelan government propaganda, that has that issue. We do have issues with our communications media, which is why you should at least learn to criticize each of them in a fair and level-handed manner. Except MSNBC, they're total dog shit. RT's parent registered with the Justice Department last year as an agent of the Russian government as a result of Special Counsel Robert Mueller's investigation into the Kremlin's meddling in the 2016 election, especially in its efforts to help Donald Trump win the White House. But Russia's campaign extended beyond the election. Somewhat ironically, Canova, a professor at the Nova Southeastern University Shepherd Broad College of Law, is running as an independent in a second bid to unseat Florida's 23rd District Congresswoman, Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Schultz was chair of the Democratic National Committee when hackers pirated so it's accepting as fact that hackers pirated its internal emails in 2015 and 2016. That's never been established. So this is dog shit journalism. This is total shit. Days before the Democratic National Convention, the emails were published by the London-based transparency site WikiLeaks. That's also kind of misleading. I think WikiLeaks is based in several. I mean, it's a network. It's not located only in London. That's where Julian Assange happens to be held against his will as a guest of the Ecuadorian embassy, which is it's still unbelievable. I mean, that should be resolved. Canova later publicly challenged the party's assertion that it had been hacked by Russians, instead pointedly and apparently erroneously suggesting that again, no investigation, nothing. It says, suggesting that the culprit may have been a DNC high-tech worker, Seth Rich, who was shot to death at 4:20 a.m. on July 10, 2016, while walking his dog in Northwest Washington, D.C. Canova said he has since ceased pushing that theory at the request of Rich's family. Well, we'll keep pushing that theory. I don't care. There's no evidence that the DNC was hacked, and therefore the only other possible lead is this. So stop telling people to assume things just out of sensitivity to the wishes of some person who, for whatever reason, has no interest in reaching the truth. U.S. intelligence agencies and foreign policy experts are watching how Russia interacts with figures such as Canova. Okay, that's very worrying. That could mean that they're spying on Tim Canova under this administration. Of all administrations, they should have learned their lesson. And if this is going on, I think Trump should immediately have a meeting with members of the NSA and CIA and say, Are you trying to insult the voters' intelligence by pinning this Russia crap on somebody like Tim Canova? Assume Tim Canova gets elected to Congress. Okay, what possible effect could he have that Russia would be party to? Now, I mean, they could say, you know, the pipelines or anything that you could say. You could be on the intelligence committee or whatever, but the Democrats have say in who gets on those committees. And if you notice, in this article, they don't even mention Debbie Wasserman Schultz's own scandal with the Wan brothers. So they're weighing this on they're weighting the whole article against Tim Canova for being allegedly friendly to the Russian Russia Today, you know, RT. They're saying because he appears on their TV station, it's possible that he could be an agent of Russian influence. But the person he's running against is the person who rigged the Democratic primaries against Bernie Sanders in many respects. You know, leaked questions, stuff like that, along with Donna Brazil. She's one of the people who helped keep the superdelegate system in place as chair of the DNC. She was basically in the back for Hillary Clinton the whole way. So they're not scrutinizing her at all. Um, Let me see here. Bear with me for 1 second. So this is interesting. This is interesting. This is fucked up, in my opinion. So look who they quote here, and I'm doing this. I'm doing it live. Doing it live, as someone would say. Fuck it, we're doing it live. So I think it might be because I curse so much that I don't get many views, but whatever. You know, YouTube can keep the views of people who hate profanity. The report, so the first mention of Russia's foray into the politics surrounding U.S. oil and gas pipelines came in a declassified January 6, 2017 report from 4 U.S. intelligence agencies about Russian interference in the U.S. presidential election. It said that RT runs anti-fracking programming, highlighting environmental issues and the impacts on public health. Now, I'm not an opponent of fracking. I'm just saying that people should be allowed to oppose fracking. I don't care if Russia is promoting it. I'm just saying if you're against fracking, it's okay. So the report attributed RT's focus to the fact that exploding U.S. production threatened the profitability of the state-backed Russian natural gas giant Gazprom, which is a leading supplier of natural gas to Europe and the former Soviet republics. Russia views America's so I think it would also push prices down. That's one of the reasons. It's not just the supply issue. So Russia views America's recent reversal of fortune from an energy importer to exporter as a threat to its hold on European markets, said Stacy Closen, a non-resident fellow at Washington's Wilson Center. She said Russia also views America's production of oil as a primary cause of sustained lower prices, hurting its bottom line. So, okay, so we'll have to go back, but I did find kind of an interesting nugget. Let me see here. I go on LinkedIn. Bear with me, guys. This is going somewhere. I think it is. So Stacy Clausen is from North Dakota, which is benefiting very much from the fracking boom. Okay, let's just be honest here. This is all about transparency. Okay, She's from the Woodrow Wilson Institute or Center, the Kennan Institute. She's from Think North Dakota, and she's a co-chair of the Energy Security Group for the Truman National Security Project. Okay, and then she University of Helsinki. So this is essentially a person concerned with promoting energy policy. So thanks to a Bush Foundation grant, I am creating a conflict resolution programming at the Peace Center on the border of the U.S. and Canada. My long-term goal is to strengthen North Dakota as the peace garden state through an internationally recognized peace center with regular programming. I wish to combine my theoretical and practical experience in conflict resolution to facilitate a longer-term solution to contentions issues amongst citizens by building strong networks dedicated to finding common ground. The first event will be a youth-focused conflict resolution retreat, inviting American and Canadian participants. That is weird. I don't know what is going on with Canada on the North Dakota border that we would need a peace center. But I don't know what the fuck that's about. Now, what I was really wondering about was that the Wilson Center is apparently affiliated with the Smithsonian. Okay. And there happens to be a certain person who is a key player there. Let's see here. See in a second. So this was from 2010, and it says, okay, this is from Business Wire, which is a Berkshire Hathaway company. That's Warren Buffett. It says Rex Tillerson, recognized by Woodrow Wilson Center as winner of 2010 Corporate Citizenship Award. Rex Tillerson, chairman and CEO of ExxonMobil Corporation, has been named the 2010 recipient of the award for corporate citizenship by the Woodrow Wilson International Center for Scholars. The award, presented at a ceremony in Dallas on Tuesday, recognizes ExxonMobil's longstanding commitment to improving education in the United States. That's when they were pushing that Common Core bullshit. That was Rex Tillerson, by the way. That's why he was such an awful pick for Secretary of State. I accept this award on behalf of thousands of ExxonMobil employees who are responsible for the company's long-standing tradition of corporate citizenship, Tillerson said during his remarks at the event. Now, I think that there's a stronger connection. So hold on. Who left the chat? Alicia Clegg. Oh, yeah. Have a good night. Adios. So, let me see. Now, let's look at the board of directors. Okay, you'll see somebody, we just talked about here. This, by the way, is foreshadowing to the type of project we're going to be engaged in soon. Me and somebody else, somebody who might actually be watching right now. In fact, damn it, where is it? Advisory board. So Betsy DeVos is on the board of directors too, but that's because she's in the Department of Education. But in fact, you also have Tillerson was on it. Then you have all these ambassadors. So you're basically talking about they're asking the U.S. government. Yeah, to Rex Tillerson because he's Secretary of State. I think the Secretary of State automatically, because this is part of the Smithsonian Institute. So you're basically talking about Rex Tillerson, who was Secretary of State for the beginning of the Trump administration and is an oil guy, just as much of the Republican Party is. Let's not beat around the bush. Those people, they're talking about, oh, Russia's trying to, they're jealous because we're trying to pump a lot of oil out. Well, you are trying to pump a lot of oil out. That's what you're always talking about. We want to pump more oil out. We want to pump more natural gas out. So why should we not react with skepticism when you smear people like Tim Canova and you say, oh, they might be affiliated with Russia? I don't care if I personally, I am more of a supporter of Donald Trump than I am an opponent of his. But I'm not going to buy this bullshit about Tim Canova. It's too much to ask to tell me because he went on RT that he is a Russian troll. While the Russian cyber operatives allegedly tricked several U.S. political activists into hosting election-related protests favoring Donald Trump's presidential campaign, the activists said trolls didn't instigate the Sable Trail rallies, others of which were held in Fort Lauderdale, Jacksonville, Orlando, and St. Petersburg, Florida. Environmental leaders from across Florida decided that it was time to have a statewide protest, said Dylan Hansen, 26, of Salat Beach in Brevard County. But the trolls were quick to pick up on those efforts. So I don't see how this is relevant. Tim Canova is against drilling and fracking and pipelines. Okay, that's legal. Russians actually happen to also oppose it. So where's the nexus? Where's the ties here? Because some bots decided to retweet it or decided to share the rally. Hansen said activists working to make social media messages go viral are open to working every avenue to push the largest audience globally. Tampa activist Anita Stewart, a one-time Air Force intelligence officer, said she initiated the social media networks for Sable Trail protesters, creating a Facebook page that built a following 10,000 strong. People could not just post on it. She said their posts had to be approved because we had so many crazy people posting stuff all the time. As for Russian bot accounts, I'm not saying that didn't happen. There were a lot of accounts that would come on the Facebook group that didn't have a real name. You can tell the names are fake. They don't have an address. We tried to be very careful and not allow membership of those types of accounts. Prior to the statewide rallies, Stewart said an RT reporter phoned her and said she would be covering the event. She asked me for contacts in the Miami area, Stewart said. I told her of a couple people. She had a very thick accent. I don't think anything of that really. To me, most news is propaganda anyway. Very astute comment. Look, how much of this bullshit do we have to take? How much? Can we get over this already? Can we get over the whole troll thing? I mean, if you look at a lot of these, especially go on the Hill. If you go on the Hill, you go to the comment section. It's mostly Hillary trolls. It's mostly people hired by David Brock. It's obvious. They call you somebody like Cheeto Hitler or something. They'll get into stupid fights with you. So that, I mean, you don't even bother commenting on the Hill piece anymore. If you go to the comment section, it's basically a shit show. So, let's see. Exit this out. Exit this out. Yeah, I believe that this is motivated by protecting the oil industry, and I don't care if people are saying, "Oh, he could be affiliated with Russia." I don't care. I really don't care anymore. Tim Canova, I hope he beats Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Well, what's worse? Allegedly cooperating in a loose manner with some Russian trolls to oppose pipelines, or basically letting half of your congressional colleagues get hacked by Pakistani IT aides that you tried to protect from being arrested. uh, which is what Debbie Wasserman Schultz did. The woman's a disaster. She is a complete disaster. Um, okay. All right. I'm caught up on the comments. So there's more movement on the whole Farrakhan feminism front, and there will be more content as far as Farrakhan feminism is concerned, whether you like it or not. Whether you like it or not, as Gavin Newsom said about gay marriage, I think, that's how they lost the. By the way, they lost Proposition 8 in California because the mayor of San Francisco said, "Oh, you're going to get it whether you like it or not." So people, of course, of course, they voted no. I guess they wanted to see if he was bluffing. So then, this is the new thing. Jewish progressives accuse Starbucks of giving in to purveyors of hatred after ADL excluded from anti-bias training. I am loving this, loving it today. Fuck Starbucks, the ADL, and the Women's March, and Black Lives Matter. Fuck them all. And, I don't care if they get Sean Connery gangbanged in the ass. All of them can go fuck themselves. I hate all four of those organizations. And everybody's talking about Kanye, and there's one group, this Zionist movement that Zionist, like lioness, Zioness. Okay, I'll show you their site. So I have a little respect for some of them. They're well-intentioned people. They do advocate in a, I guess, respectable manner for. This is Chloe Valderi. She does work very hard, talking, debunking uh, falsehoods concerning the Middle East, concerning Israel, concerning Palestine, concerning Christianity, Judaism. And I do respect her, but she's wrong on this. She's trying to defend the ADL, and I've been tweeting to her. And I'm sorry, Chloe, and I'm apologizing that this is so, I have to be obnoxious about it. But I do. I hate the ADL. And if you're working with the ADL, you're not you're not going to be doing anything good. The ADL is a cancer, and people have to disconnect. They basically have to do what they're doing to ESPN and CNN and the mainstream networks, and simply unplug, develop your own mind. Uh, she was commenting a couple days ago about Kanye West, about how interesting it is that he's starting to talk about independent thinking and having your own ideas or whatever. And what does she do? She flows right back into this bullshit with Starbucks. The Starbucks incident was nonsense. Nobody should care. There's worse things in the world than getting kicked out of a Starbucks because you were loitering there and they wouldn't let you use the bathroom. Okay, this day and age in America, there are worse things happening. You have people dying, homeless people all over California, tent cities up to what's that stadium? The one in Anaheim. It's a disgrace. This country is really, it's a dump, and people are worrying about a couple people getting kicked out of Starbucks. For fuck's sake, Starbucks is garbage, and they've been a bunch of lily-livered retards for years with all of their progressive attitudes, and we're gonna make this a very inclusive workplace or whatever. You sell coffee to douches that pretend that they have aspirations of changing the world. Okay, you're a corporate firm that peddles a completely artificial facade of the coffee shop that hipsters once used to go to. There's now you have these purist hipsters. I actually go to a coffee shop around here once in a while because they have good coffee. That they're the classic open mic night coffee shop with they have chairs there, and you can watch people play their stupid accordion or whatever. So I used to do like assignments there back in the day. Then they remodeled and whatever. And then you move on with your life. It's a fucking coffee shop. Get over it. But people turn it into basically a cultural uh, a cultural phenomenon all of its own. Look, Starbucks, it got big in the late 1990s, and immediately people who were progressive started to, there was immediate backlash when they started to really go corporate, because there was a Starbucks literally everywhere. There is a famous Louis Black routine. Louis Black, who happens to be Jewish, so this isn't an anti-Semitic joke, but I'm just kidding. It has nothing to do with Jews anyway. He said that he went and witnessed once the place where the universe ends, because he went to a street where there was a Starbucks, and then he went and bought something at that Starbucks. And he went outside and he saw another Starbucks, and he said, "Oh, that's where the universe begins to end." Now I mean, with him, it's funnier because of the timing, but that was the joke, that those things, that they were everywhere, and there were Starbucks as places that I mean, who the hell would need them? So, and Starbucks kind of became, that was the joke. It became like the McDonald's of coffee. And Howard Schultz, the moron who was Starbucks' CEO for many years, who also ruined the Seattle Supersonics and made them move out of Seattle. Howard Schultz is he tried very hard to keep up the image of Starbucks being like a progressive company or whatever, and many people still bought into it. And then you had people who were really far left who said, well, we're not going to keep buying at Starbucks. But it's over. And Chloe Valderi is not the only one. There's other people, you know we see, it's her, mostly women. Amanda Berman, Sarah Liss. You have Ann Lewis, a leading American Democratic strategist and communicator. So, and then Rabbi Karen Cater, Saba Sumek. So you have these these well-intentioned Jewish liberals who are still Zionist or whatever, which is, I guess, I mean, it's within their rights. Obviously, it's within your rights to believe whatever you want. I'm not one of these people who's going to tell them stop believing whatever you want. I'm just telling them the ADL is a shit organization. It promotes censorship. They tried to blackmail a troll back in the summer. A troll. They set their agenda was, you found out who's the troll who Donald Trump shared his GIF of him slamming CNN as Vince McMahon into the, what was it, the turnbuckle on WWE. That was their goal for like a month, exposing who that person was, and blackmailing him, saying, "Oh, you're a white supremacist, right? Well, if we know who you are, and if you don't apologize, we're going to expose you to the entire world." Who? I mean, what goal does that serve? It only served, in fact, to magnify the problem. More people started to pile on and say, and even become white nationalists, and that is what the ADL does. They stand up for the establishment of the Jewish community. They don't stand up for the values of the Jewish religion. They are actually an organization that is mainly centered around an atheistic and commercialized image of Judaism, and I'm not standing for it. I'm not standing for it. I don't want them standing for me. They deserve to completely disappear. They are corporate representation. They're worse than they are basically the CNN version of an advocacy group. They're the same thing as the NAACP. The NAACP, I've argued with you guys saw Alex yesterday, the guy with the fucked up eye. May he get better. Got well. We're full shlema to Alex. But by the way, that means may you have a full recovery. So I'm not kidding. So Alex, get better if you're watching this. In any case, Alex believes that the NAACP is still a good organization for advocating for Black people. You know what's the best organization for advocating for Black people? Black individuals that can speak for themselves. You don't need an organization now. This is an age where people can publish by themselves. They can send messages across the world. They can spam message people too. You don't need an alphabet soup organization to represent people anymore. Now, it may help in terms of doing in-person rallies and events and stuff like that. It helps. But in terms of actually representing people, People are now, this is a public that, in the internet age, people don't have to be told what to think anymore, as if they ever were, um, as if they ever needed to be. And they're talking about the whole Kanye West thing. Oh, the free thought, whatever. Look, if people really embrace that, I've been talking for over a year now, probably longer, about the fact that these organizations, whoever they may be, they don't advocate for you. They advocate for the organization. This whole stupid spat about the ADL, where did it stem from? Oh, we want to run the sensitivity training for Starbucks for, because two idiots got kicked out of a Starbucks a couple weeks ago. So the Women's March is just also another racist organization, just like the ADL, which is racist against people with a brain. So the Women's March is racist against white people with a brain. Um, so two racist organizations are arguing, and the Women's March says the ADL is racist against the wrong people. They're saying they're racist against black and brown people. That's their whole rationale for kicking the ADL out of the sensitivity training. So you have two organizations that are in and of themselves, they're racist. The ADL is racist against people with a brain, and the Women's March is racist against white people with a brain, fighting over who gives sensitivity training to a organization that is accused of being racist against black people, when in reality it's just a organization that's racist against customers that want reasonably priced coffee. That's the whole explanation for this. And you have Black Lives Matter there somewhere. Black Lives Matter is basically an afterthought now. They're basically, what Black Lives Matter is they're like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? Remember when they stopped being a thing? Like for about 2 years, people would watch it every day, and then people stopped watching it every day, and then finally Regis Philbin stopped hosting the show, and they gave it to somebody else. Well, that's Black Lives Matter. They're at the point where Regis Philbin has left, and nobody's paying attention anymore. They're an irrelevant organization. What have they done with their grants? Nothing. Nothing. What gains do they have to talk about? Nothing. They're irrelevant. All of these organizations are an afterthought at this point. Who else I think was in on this? Well, I mean, it doesn't matter. Let me see what the chat's saying here at this point. Uncle Hotep. How did he come up? Yanye bot ya mushina. I'm a person, yeah. I'm not a bot, I'm a person. Nice one, J-Man Truth Seeker. Good. Debbie Wasserman Schultz is a disaster from the mobile one in her hair down. Yeah, absolutely. J-Man's Truth Seeker. Ya obeshayem shtoya yes. Oh, okay. He translated into Russian. I bought, therefore I am. Nice. Tavarish. I like it. I like the Russian stuff. I like it. I like it. I like the Russian people. Do any of you watch there's a guy Bobby Slayton, he's a comedian. He talks like that. I love the Chinese people after he makes like 50 jokes about Asians. Um yeah, this is an era where we, I don't know if this free thought issue, if we're all going to be okay in the future. There's always going to be people who are going to say, well, no, this is not okay. So professionally, a lot of us are suffering, and I'm not being facetious here. There's a lot of us suffering professionally from this. I might be one of them too. I'm not sure yet. I'm trying to figure that out. But you know, ultimately, you have to make your way in the world without basically becoming just a tool of it, just becoming some sort of cog in the wheel of it, and maintain your own bearings. So yes, you can examine Netanyahu's evidence and look at it, weigh it, reach your own conclusion. I think that if you look at it, even from the most sympathetic standpoint, There's still no indication of what the path forward would be. To bomb another country without a path forward, without a indication of what's the best course of action after that, what to do with the country after that, it's ridiculous. You can't do it. Same thing with Syria. Labeling people Russian trolls, labeling people Russian puppets or Syrian puppets, as they do with Denis Kucinich and Tim Canova. It's just wrong. It's dishonest to the voter. It's dishonest to your public. Our country does need to deal with foreign influence in our elections. I'm against all lobbying groups. I do want Citizens United overturned. As a supporter of Israel, I still oppose AIPAC. We have to get this system of government cleaner and move towards a world where it's easier for governments to interact transparently. Julian Assange, you can criticize him all you want. He's done the most of any person around the world to help bring that about. There's people on both sides of the spectrum that know that. They've seen the work he's done. There's James O'Keefe on the right. There's other people on the left. I think Glenn Greenwald has done a couple of investigations. I hate his guts, but you have to give him credit where it's due. You have to look for the people that are trying to represent the world as it is, and not the world as their agenda fits it. And I hope I do that. And if I don't, people let me know. That's it for tonight. I hope you enjoyed it, and keep an open mind. Subscribe, like the video, share the video, and stay tuned for next time.